and welcome to Check Your Connection, the Dimensions Council podcast. This is about our fourth one. Today we are got a few guests. We've got two council members who will introduce, and then we've got one of our board, I think, and we also are going to talk about the police as well, and this is also quite close to Dimensions Heart as we've got a campaign already on it. And then if you're a regular listener, which we're actually hoping for, we've got the download section where we talk about our interests and hobbies, just to say that we are actually human. And we also got the Lingo Bingo that's coming right at the end.
Hello, my name is David. I'm supported by Dementias. I work for Dementias as Dementias Council Chair. I really love it, and I love doing this podcast. It's brilliant and it's great fun. And I'm also a very busy man doing other things as well. So hello everyone and welcome. That's me.
Hi everyone, I'm Jordan. I'm a council member, also a former chair of the council. I'm supported by Dimensions in Colchester, and I'm also advocacy lead for Dimensions in the Public Affairs team.
Hello everybody, I'm Richard. Thank you very, very much for inviting me to join you on the podcast. I've recently joined the board of Dimensions, and part of my duties there is also to chair Discovery, which is basically Dimensions in Somerset, near where I live in Devon. About 11 years ago, I retired from being a police officer. So I was in the police for many, many years. I was the chief constable in Lincolnshire. But I finished that, as I said, about 11 years ago. Hopefully I can maybe answer a few questions that you might have about the police, although I am quite out of date now, because as I said, I'm getting very, very old.
They may look young, Richard.
He looks very young.
Hi, my name is Chelsea. I'm the current Vice Chair of Dimensions Council, and I am the current host of Check Your Connection, and I'm someone we support, employed sometimes, and yeah, one of the tenants, and I live over in the West Country. And we also got Michelle, who helps run the Dimensions Council, and she loves editing all us in this podcast, so keeps her busy and out of trouble. We're now going to move on to talking about the police, and so one of the things we do in Dimensions is have a campaign called I'm with Sam, and that is one of our campaigns, and one of the people that run that is Mark Brooks, MBE. You got to remember, Dr. Mark Brooks runs it, MBE, and this topic came up that was important to us was we were talking about local authorities in our gallery session within council last time, and this is why we wanted to talk about it on the podcast. And we've invited Richard because it was a good idea to bring him along for his expertise.
I'm with Sam, which is a campaign that, as my Vice Chair Chelsea has correctly said, is Dr. Mark Brooks MBE or Brooksy. He did some work with Dimensions and with the police forces, I think. The Dimensions Council launched that in Parliament because we thought it's very important subject to mention. My my experience with the police was not great. When we did the face-to-face thing about me having to go to court and testify against, I won't say names because we're not allowed to say names, but testify against people that are not here. And for that, for me, with learning difficulties, that was the most scariest frightening thing I've ever done in my life. To be standing in front of a courtroom full of people, people that say, so the judge that I didn't know, the judges and the judge, and then the people that sat, in front, and it was for me very nerve-wracking. Very nerve-wracking. I was very scared about doing that, but I did that. I went there in the end. I did that. I conquered my fear, and I was so proud of myself for standing up for myself, and not being taken advantage of. And I think I felt very proud of that. That was a very emotional day for me. I didn't think that the police believed me. Now I know police people have got a lot on their plate, and they're very busy policemen and women. But if someone is telling you, for instance, Richard, I had a racist incident happen to me when I was 17, which was horrible, and I had to go to court for that. And you're telling the police officers this racist thing, or say sexist or horrible, or another thing, or domestic violence thing has happened. You're telling them you're telling them the truth. And I felt that I was not believed, and that, Richard, is a horrible thing to feel when I'm telling Thames Valley police people that came to do an interview with me, and I'm telling them that and saying, look, this has happened, you need to do this because I don't feel safe. And I can remember staying at home in the evenings, and I wouldn't go out unless I went with my parents or brother or sister, and that's a horrible feeling, and I just wanted police to understand how that feels from our point of view, because we have learning difficulties and sometimes we might not understand things, and actually we need to have the appropriate adult there has to be there, if you know what I mean. And that's what I just wanted to say.
David, I think that's really, really important, and thanks for telling that story.
No, that's fine. That's all right.
And for also telling us about the court experience.
Thank you.
It's hard to hear sometimes. In terms of going to court these days, and now for quite some time now, there are things that the police and the court system can do to help people with learning disabilities or any form of disability. Really, they're called special measures. And like you say, it's really nerve-wracking to go to court for anybody. For police officers, it's nerve-wracking, I can tell you, sometimes. So you can do things like you can give your evidence on a video link, rather like we're talking to each other now, and that can be played in the court. Or on occasions, you can give your evidence behind a screen, and you can have assistance. If, for example, if people find it difficult to communicate, they can be given expert assistance to help them to communicate in court. So there are things that can be done, but it still is a very nerve-wracking experience. You're quite right. Can't take the nervousness out of it, I'm afraid, but we can make it a bit easier for people.
Yeah. When I had to go to court for that, they put a big screen in front of me because I didn't want to see the culprits that did the terrible thing for me, because I would have broken down and cried.
It's that sort of thing. That's good to hear.
So the judge said to me, don't worry, David, we'll put a big screen there. You do not have to look at them. Concentrate on us. Focus on us.
That's really good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, so am I.
And if I may, Jordan, I listened to you on a podcast or on a YouTube video rather, talking about your experience, and I think you had it both ways, didn't you? You had police officers who didn't really believe you and didn't really help you, and then eventually you found somebody who did listen and made things happen.
Yeah, I mean, often in life it takes one person to have your back. One person to have your back and sort of to be believed, and it takes often if you have one police officer that really understands and gets you and gets what's happened to you, it made a huge difference to my dealing with the police. I had an actual police officer who was responsible for, I don't know her official title, but it was vulnerable adults. I had her name, her phone number. I didn't have to go through 999 or 111. She liaised with all the authorities and the council and the people that committed a hate crime. I think and it was her perseverance that turned it in from antisocial behaviour to a hate crime.
Yes.
And those people were charged with a hate crime and dealt with, and you know, a couple of them were subsequently moved on from that area that they were asked to move. What I would say is it wasn't just a one-hit thing. You had to build up quite a number of weeks of evidence.
Yes.
And send that into the police on a weekly basis. And although it's all over now, you know, I still suffer from the after effects of what happened. You know, I no longer travel by myself. I no longer go out by myself because of what happened. So, yes, we had a great result in convictions and in people moving on and me moving into a better place. And a great response from this particular police officer. But the after effects of having a hate crime committed on you is huge, you know, and it's not something that I've probably got over.
Jordan, I think also that can be quite relatable in general hate crime with other victims that could relate to that, like the after effects of having assaults and hate and stuff. I just want to add that to like that.
Yeah, I stayed indoors. I got very, very depressed. I suffered with depression at 17 because I was very young. Horrible thing to have happen. If I was going to go out, I'd go out with my brother and my mum and dad. I wouldn't go on my own. And that's a horrible feeling that I should be able at 17 to just go up the road, go to the shops, go and buy something. But I'm having to ask my mum and dad to go with me, my brothers and sisters to go with me. I felt that I felt embarrassed that you know that I wanted to go out on my own and had to go with my parents. It was very embarrassing. It was just really horrible because it felt like that sense of having freedom and independence was like, it felt like it was being taken away from me, if you know what I mean, because of what happened.
I think your behaviour changes because of what happened.
Yes, yeah, oh yes, very much so. Yes, you're right there, Jordan.
I had to I think once when I was at school, this was way back, this is the first secondary school I went to, and there was one incident where I quoted something off of the channel, a TV program, the Cramp Twins, and I said it to someone, and they must have been in a bad mood because then they turned on me, and by the time I was on the floor curled up getting kicked. So I had that once. We then went to there, and like when we reported, and Mum was like, oh, when I said what happened was I was quoting. What are police doing about hate crime?
Yeah, I mean, I'm listening to all of your stories. They're it's really, really tough to listen to, isn't it? Because you've all been through pretty horrible things. And, particularly Jordan and David, as you've both said, it has a long-lasting effect.
Oh, God, yes, doesn't it?
Which I absolutely recognise. What I would say to both of you, though, you were both strong enough to stand up and report it, go through the system, go to court. So well done to you. You were very strong to do that. Over the years, I've seen a big change in the way that the police deal with hate crime and all sorts of hate crime and deal with the way in which crimes against people with learning disabilities and autism are dealt with. And it's been an improvement. If I'm honest, there are still, however, lots and lots of gaps in that.
Do you think that they are capable, with all the things around the Met and stuff, that they will protect us in the long term?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I have no hesitation in saying to you that the police will take action to protect you, but there is a but. Sometimes you won't get a sympathetic ear with the first police officer that you talk to. So persevere, try and get to know your local police officers, including the police community support officers. You hear the term PCSOs, which they're in uniform. They're not police officers, but they're in uniform and they support the local police. And they're really important in local communities. If you can get to know them and you forge a relationship with them, if these sorts of things do happen, then you're already on the front foot because you've got that relationship with your local PCSO and your local policing team. How do you do it? Well, you might, for example, send them an email and introduce yourself. Say, I'm living wherever. I'm supported by Dimensions. If you do have somebody supporting you, you might say to them, Can you help me to introduce myself, to take to the local police station, or just arrange something like that? There will be ways in which you can make that contact. If you do Twitter and social media, follow them on Facebook or follow them on Twitter. All that they want people to make contact with them because they're interested in forming really good, strong communities.
I think that's important as well, because it's like, it would be great if like you could go have the courage to go up and like just have a chat, and
absolutely,
if anything's bad and they see it, like if you have a relationship with them where you can communicate and go, right, it's Chelsea, right,
exactly,
what do you want?
Exactly, you're quite right, Chelsea. So that's a bit of a tip I could give you. The other thing, I think, thinking back to Jordan's story, when at first he wasn't believed, they didn't really listen to him. And good for you, Jordan, you persevered, and that's so important. If you don't get the right response, say to them, I want to speak to somebody who specialises in supporting people like me who's got a learning disability or have autism, because there should be such people in every police force.
It is about finding that one person in the force. What more can we do to stop police officers not believing us in the first place? Because that causes quite a lot of stress. Of
course it does. And
anxiety.
It's a huge problem. When I was in police myself, as I said, it's over 11 years ago now. We had exactly these conversations about how do you train, 140, 150,000 police officers in England and Wales to be as good as that person that eventually dealt with you. And it's a huge task because, to be fair, they're doing all sorts of different things. There's lots of competing sort of demands on their time, as David, you said, but that's not an excuse. So we've got to do more training. I know Dimensions are involved in that training, and the sort of things that you do, you know, your podcast, the training materials you do, think that's really powerful. Chelsea?
I want to know the double standard of how you can help women with learning disabilities and the information out there, I guess.
You know that crimes against women and crimes against girls have become very, very high on the national agenda, hasn't it? It's not just policing, politicians and society generally very concerned about that. Mm-hmm. And I know there's been a big response in policing to raise their game to provide a better service to women and to girls. But if you do have learning disability or autism, as well as being a woman, as you say, it's a bit of a double issue, isn't it? And you should have...
It's intersectionality in a way.
That's the word, yeah. And you should have all of the resources there to provide help to people with learning disabilities and autism. Those special measures that I talked about, specialists in the police service who are highly trained to help you report your crime, and if need be, to go to court and give your evidence as well.
I just felt it was important to talk about looking at not just people with learning disabilities, but
absolute
intersectionality of it, including the races and the gender, the intersectionality. Because if we don't cover that, we won't, you know, that opens up the listeners to knowing, you know, Dimension supports the intersectionality of police and stuff.
It's a brilliant point, Chelsea.
It was a baroness from, I think, the House of Commons did a report and found that the Metropolitan Police was institutionally racist. That there were male officers making sexist comments and laughing about it against women. I think it's disgusting. Yeah. And I don't like that. You've got to treat everybody as human being and treat people nicely. That, you know, if you're a police officer, you've got to be above. You are the law. You've got to be above the law, not think that you're better than everyone else. I just thought I wanted to ask that question.
David, I couldn't agree with you more. And all of the decent police officers out there are absolutely disgusted by that sort of behaviour as well, and it lets everybody down.
This month we met up with the board, which is in charge of which looks after the Dimensions group, and then we had a 2-day meeting with them. One was about staying safe online, cost of living, and mental health, connecting with everyone in other regions, which was important to us. I sort of missed the benefits of going online and doing it compared to that, but it was really nice to see everyone and socialise, and fortunately there was a load of hugging, which was great. And we are now moving on to the download section, which I do love to talk about. So we're going to talk about what we've been watching, reading, learning, all that. So David, what have you been doing?
Oh wow, what have I been doing? I've been watching a television program. I've been watching television program. I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. And I find that program very funny and it's very interesting. And there's a certain former government minister in there. I think you can all guess who
that is.
I bet you could guess who that is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we should get some entertainment from that.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. And
do you think it'll make it more human, Matt Hancock? I think
it will. I think it will. And I also listened to BBC Radio for the Archers programme. in the afternoon and evening. One of my favourite shows on Radio 4, as well as listening to some music. Thank you. That's for me.
I'm looking forward to the World Cup in 10 days' time, and I hope that England will win that, despite all the issues in Qatar at the moment.
Do you think we'll be singing that song again? It's coming home.
Well, it did last. It actually did early on this year, if you include the Women's Euros.
It did indeed.
I think we will. I must say, if you paid me £400,000, I would also go to the jungle, Chelsea, and eat kangaroo penis and all of that stuff. So I haven't got a problem with. I love my food. Wouldn't be able to take any chips in there. But I've also been watching it purely actually because of Matt Hancock. Actually, to be honest, so I want to see him squirm.
Well, I think if you go to the jungle, Jordan, they don't feed you chips. You've got to eat kangaroo penis, I believe, is on the menu there. What have I been doing? Lots of things, but one thing you've made me think, actually, because you've invited me to this podcast. I listened to a podcast called The Rest is Politics with somebody called Rory Stewart, who used to be an MP, and Alastair Campbell, who was, he worked in government for many, many years. And
Campbell,
you know him, he's on the telly as well, isn't he?
Yeah.
So maybe Prime Minister.
Well, yes, exactly. So I listened to that, but it's a brilliant podcast. But I think, having been involved with you today, you could give them a good run for their money, because the conversation that you've been having today is at least as good as that one.
Oh, brilliant! I like that. That's brilliant.
I've been reading Shadowhunters, which I got for my birthday in September, and I've on the second book, and it's getting quite interesting because I've got to they're on the second book, and Alec has nearly come out to his parents, and he was about to say he was seeing Magnus, but yeah. Oh, NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month is this month in November, and it's 50,000 words per month, but I started at 35,000 to get to the minimum of 50,000.
Wow, amazing.
So I'm slightly cheating, but if anyone out there is doing NaNoWriMo, then just hello. And next up is Challenge the Lingo Bingo.
Challenge the lingo, lingo, lingo. Challenge the lingo, bingo.
This episode is don't use my address, use my name.
But a lot of people will say, the name of the name of the service rather than who lives in their own home. It really bugs me. We're meant to be big on language, and
I agree with Jordan. It bugs me because when they're saying the name of the place, it should say, "This is David and my friend's home."
Yeah, I sort of gonna be the annoying one and sort of disagree. There's protected identity of it, where because I can't say the word, where if it's like a whole group of people, or you don't want them to know who lives there, it is useful.
I would say it's how we feel. That has to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, it's really so interesting to hear you say this, because Dimensions prides itself rightly, I think, on providing personalised support to people. But as with the police that we were talking about earlier on, we don't always get it right, do we? And it's things like this, and we need to hear this, because if we don't refer to it as Jordan's house or whatever, you sort of depersonalise it, and clearly people don't like it, and understandably so. So it's a really strong message.
It's more personalised to use the name unless you're protecting identity. And thanks to my guests, Jordan, David and Richard. And thank you to Michelle in the background who was helping and supporting us. You can contact us by emailing us at dimensionscouncil@dimensions-uk.org. You can also contact us and like and share our videos on YouTube. Follow the Dimensions on Twitter, LinkedIn, and the other ones. Bye! We'll try to be on their show and they can come on our show.
Wouldn't that be brilliant? Yeah.
Just be a bit careful, Richard, because you haven't seen your avatar yet, have you? So.